You're listening to an Airwave Media Podcast.
There are some 16 countries that celebrate a holiday dedicated to the giving of thanks, most of them a harvest time celebration, in which it is customary to feast and count one's blessings. I'm not sure what the dynamic of these holidays are in other countries, such as Germany, the Netherlands, Brazil, Japan, and South Korea, to name a few who have similar holidays. But here in the United States, the holiday has become known for more than just banqueting and thankfulness. As a time when one gathers with family, because many a family may be dysfunctional or estranged in some way, or politically and ideologically divided, it becomes a strained time in which we struggle to find common ground, forget old grievances, and avoid the raising of divisive topics and hot-button issues in order to prevent all-out quarrels. If this is not familiar or relatable to you, then congratulations, your family is serene and perfect. Or perhaps you have simply cut ties with the family members who might drive you nuts or push your buttons. As for the rest of us, we're looking down the barrel of an especially contentious atmosphere in the wake of a hotly contested presidential election, during which the nation has been riven and taken sides in not only a culture war, but a struggle for the very soul of the country, a struggle that seems lost right now to many of us, a defeat that some may seek to revel in, especially the sorts who joke about drinking the tears of those with whom they disagree. I think Thanksgiving in a presidential election year can always be more contentious, but it feels like our division is worsening year on year. And this is by design to some degree. I'd like to lay the blame on foreign interference, on Russia and China pushing divisive messages and purposely sowing discord through online misinformation and troll farms, marshaling an army of fake social media profiles. But I don't think we can only blame them for the disunion in our country. I think they exacerbate our divisions, but these rifts have long been present, pulling the nation apart at the seams. And the history of the Thanksgiving holiday is all tied up with the history of our disunion as a supposedly united country. When I talk about the history of the Thanksgiving holiday, I don't mean the Pilgrims feasting with Native Americans, itself a highly mythologized story. No, I refer to the dawn of the holiday proper, the beginnings of a national holiday growing out of separate, informal traditions. Thanksgiving arose out of the American Civil War. The origin of the holiday goes far back, further even than the Pilgrims, for the notion of being thankful and prayerful was not their invention, and celebrating a bountiful harvest was a common pagan practice far back into the Middle Ages, such as with the Gaelic Lunasa festival. Nor were pilgrims the only settlers to hold a day of Thanksgiving upon their arrival in America. The practice was common and widespread enough that numerous separate traditions arose, with competing traditions over who had held the first Thanksgiving in the American colonies. By 1777, all 13 states were holding some sort of Thanksgiving holiday on different days and with different levels of formality. Typically, days of prayer and thanksgiving were proclaimed by a state's governor, but they tended to be one-time observances, not official recurring holidays. In 1789, George Washington declared that such a one-time, quote, day of thanksgiving and prayer, end quote, be held on the 26th of November, a Thursday. But the third U.S. president, Thomas Jefferson, felt he could not declare such holidays, even though he previously had as the governor of Virginia, because fasts and days of prayer are expressions of religion, and he felt strongly that there must be, quote, a wall of separation between church and state, end quote. He felt it was more the place of a state government rather than the federal government to declare such holidays. And throughout the first half of the 19th century, that is what they did, making separate traditions more and more official in most states, while presidents occasionally declared a one-time national day of Thanksgiving. To some, like Sarah Josepha Hale, editor of the most widely circulated magazine in the antebellum period, Godey's Lady's Book, it was too fragmented and confusing. If we truly were a nation of individual states united as one country, then we should come together as one country in prayer and thanksgiving on a single day every year. That's what Hale felt, and she became the most vocal advocate for the establishment of this national holiday, writing numerous articles about it, gathering endorsements from governors, and petitioning presidents to declare the official holiday. Remembered today as the author of the nursery rhyme Mary Had a Little Lamb, Hale was an admirable activist in her day and was considered one of, if not the most influential voice in America during that time. Although she was a product of her era and as such viewed Queen Victoria as a role model for all women and supported women's active role in the domestic sphere rather than supporting suffrage, she might nevertheless be viewed as progressive and feminist for her time. As a working woman herself, she encouraged women to enter the workforce, publishing an Employment for Women section in her magazine, and she wrote in praise of any schools that admitted women as students, actually helping to found the all-women's Vassar College. Certainly there was no better advocate that the holiday might have had. And when the question is raised of why we have a national Thanksgiving holiday today, it is typically her 40-year campaign for its establishment that is credited. Sarah Josepha Hale was also a vocal abolitionist. She advocated against slavery in her magazine and also for the preservation of the Union. She liked to publish stories about Northerners and Southerners who had fallen in love with each other and joined in marriage, or who had banded together in the Revolution to fight the British. Considering her passionate endorsement of the establishment of a national Thanksgiving holiday and her disapproval of the South seceding in order to preserve the institution of slavery, she must have had mixed feelings when Jefferson Davis, the President of the Confederacy, adopted such a holiday for the rebel states. There is actually some sense that the holiday really originated in the South, in Virginia in 1619, among the settlers aboard the Margaret, 2 years before the Plymouth celebration. So such a proclamation in the South is not surprising. There's no indication that Davis was proclaiming a recurring holiday, as Hale was advocating, but his 1861 proclamation brought the rebel states together in much the way Hale had hoped a national holiday would bring all American people together, though for all the wrong reasons. Their Thanksgiving did not adopt the spirit of the Pilgrims and the Native Americans sitting down together and sharing food. Theirs was no holiday of conciliation, fellow feeling, and union. They gathered to thank God, whom they believed favored their cause. And as the sermons delivered by Southern preachers the following year reveal, they gathered to give thanks for recent military victories against the North, which they held as signs that God was on their side. As the presiding Episcopal Bishop of the Confederacy, Stephen Elliott, put it, quote, "What shall we think then of the relation which subsists between a dominant race, professing to believe in God and to acknowledge Christ, and a subject race, brought from their distant homes and placed under its charge for culture, for elevation, and for salvation? His divine arrangements are placed in our keeping. Will he not preserve them? His divine purposes seem to be intermingled with our success." End quote. It's hard to read that and take seriously the claim that the Civil War was not about slavery. They enshrined slavery itself as their cause, claimed they were enacting God's will by preserving it, and prayed on their days of thanksgiving for the continuation of the institution, thanking God for all their victories as if it proved that their enslavement of human beings was divinely approved. Meanwhile, Sarah Josepha Hale did not cease her campaigning, and finally, her petitioning was received favorably by President Abraham Lincoln. In a letter dated September 28, 1863, she urged the president to, quote, have the day of our annual Thanksgiving made a national and fixed Union festival, end quote, urging that this, quote-unquote, Thanksgiving Union be proclaimed for the last Thursday of November. Having received this letter in the aftermath of the bloody Battle of Gettysburg, Lincoln felt that establishing such a holiday might be beneficial in emphasizing the brotherhood of all Americans, encouraging his countrymen, both Northern and Southern, to contemplate the blessings our country had provided them. In his proclamation dated October 3rd, he offered remarks not on how he viewed God as partisan to the Union cause, but rather on how he wished, quote, the interposition of the Almighty hand to heal the wounds of the nation and to restore it to the full enjoyment of peace, harmony, tranquility, and union, end quote. So during the Civil War, there were two very different Thanksgivings, one on the 15th of November in the Confederacy, and one on the last Thursday in November for the Union. And even long after the Civil War, there was disagreement over when the holiday should be observed. In 1939, amid the outbreak of World War II, President Roosevelt tried to move it to the second to last Thursday of the month in an effort to boost the economy with earlier Christmas shopping, but many rejected the idea. Some even observed both dates, calling the first Franksgiving, such that there were literally two holidays. Now, after the holiday has settled to be held on the fourth Thursday, whether or not it's the last Thursday of the month, I think there remains a sense that there are still two Thanksgivings, for it has long meant different things to different people. To some, as among the Confederates, it is a day to confirm and revel in one's own religious and political ideologies, while to others, it is a day to strengthen the bonds of family and country and keep what's important foremost in our minds. This, to me, in our own time of disunion, must stand as the true meaning of Thanksgiving. It must, this year, be a healing holiday. No matter what divides our country and our families, it must be a day of truce, of armistice, on which we come together as kin in the face of terrible discord and even political catastrophe. I do not propose a surrender to the anti-democratic forces that sweep over our nation today. I do not suggest we give in or give up. We must not let go of what America should stand for and still does represent. Instead, this Thanksgiving, I suggest we remind ourselves of the humanity of our fellow citizens, regardless of what misinformation they may believe, what cult of personality has seduced them, or what inherited prejudice may drive their ideologies and move their hand in the voting booth. Just smile, find common ground, love one another as best you can, change the subject to evade quarrels and preserve relationships. Give thanks for those liberties and rights we still have and must continue to fight for, and pray for the justice that may now be deferred.